Hi, welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on youtube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section, please. Like and share the video as well. It's time for another episode of hashtag AskSCW. Taking your questions today from twitter.com. As well as that, you can get in touch here in the comment section here on YouTube. You can also get in touch on Instagram and Facebook. The things should be coming up on your screen now of where you can add, like, and follow me. Remember to leave the hashtag AskSCW and I will answer that on the next video here on YouTube. But without further ado, let's get your first question today, and it is coming from Jordan Garber, and he asks, if you could go back into any year in wrestling, what year would it be and why? Great question to start things off this week, and it's really difficult really when you look through the history of wrestling. There's so many iconic moments, and what one would you want to relive? I think a lot of people would love to go back to the Attitude Era, especially when you had WWE, you had WCW as well, with the Monday Night Wars going on with the two companies back and forth of who would win the ratings war, as well as that ECW as well. Big fan of that back in the day. But for me, I'm going to pick 2002, and the reason for this is, even though it's after the Monday Night Wars, you had all of the best talent from all three of those companies under one, and we got so many dream matches within that period of time. So for me, 2002 will be my answer, because for me it was such an exciting period within wrestling at that point. We had the Elimination Chamber brought in, we had the start of the brand extension at the time, which was very exciting for Raw and SmackDown. Just so many iconic moments through that time period, and for me, I would like to go back and relive that if I was to go back to 1 year within wrestling history. Our next question comes from James Steele, and he asks, who would you like to see in a potential Balor Club stable? Very interesting with the idea of Finn Balor, and he has teased that he would love a stable, and of course now returning to NXT, who would be the key people that would be involved with that? I remember seeing in an interview that I believe he would love the Authors of Pain to be a part of a stable with him, which would be very interesting indeed, since the fact that quietly, their video packages have been dropped from Raw the last couple of weeks. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that as well, but it would be interesting to see how they would be brought back to TV, and NXT would be a great place for it. But for me, looking at the actual current NXT roster, I'm not going to take anyone from outside of WWE for this question. Looking at the NXT roster, there's a few people that I think would be quite suitable to go into that stable. My first choice would be Damian Priest. I think he's got, the way his sort of image is put across is sort of like always quite dark, quite mystique, and I think that would be quite well for a Balor Club stable, because of course we see Finn Balor go to these demon gimmick from time to time, and I think the idea of Damien as well kind of has that kind of link together in that way, and I think that he's also a big guy, and he would be a great backup for Finn Balor in needed of situations of where it is needed. As well, and I could see Cameron Grimes. I think he would be quite an interesting guy for that stable as well. And to finish off, for me, I would sort of go to NXT UK, and of course they always say you go to the people that you trust. The Irish Ace, Jordan Devlin, I'd bring him up to the main NXT roster. Of course, Finn Balor actually trained Jordan Devlin, so that would be my lineup of a Balor Club stable. I think it would be quite interesting. It would bring those three guys up who are fairly newcomers as well within WWE, particularly Cameron Grimes and Damian Priest as well. They're fairly new to the company, so it would definitely give them some sort of edge, and I think that putting that together, I think, would be quite a credible stable. And if you need to make a tag team out of it, maybe if you say had a feud with the Undisputed Era, maybe somewhere down the line, I think Devlin and Grimes would make quite a good, credible tag team together. I think both are great technical wrestlers, and I think that their styles would suit together quite well within a team. Next question comes from Austin Whitley, and he asks, who do you think the 2-hour version of NXT has helped? My choice is Keith Lee. I think you bang on the money personally. Keith Lee was seen to struggle to get TV time when you look before, when NXT was just 1 hour every week. Since now it's become 2 hours, not only has he become more regular on the TV, he's also become a prominent role, and now is going to be involved in the War Games match, which arguably is a main event match at a takeover, something that Keith Lee was struggling to do before. So for me, Keith Lee is also the top choice, but there are a number of talents that have started to get themselves TV time who probably weren't going to get it before. I mean, a lot of the NXT breakout stars have managed to find themselves TV time. Killian Dana's another guy who finds himself on there weekly, and we've seen Pete Dunne being introduced. So there's a lot of talent now that perhaps we wasn't seeing on such a weekly basis, But I think that you were right from minute one. Keith Lee is definitely the guy who's credited most so far from this. Looking at the women's division, I'd say that Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox are probably two people that have massively benefited as well from the 2-hour TV change. Both of them seem to be on TV a lot more since the change from 1 hour. Of course, Tegan Nox was out injured, but would she have been as heavily involved as like this if NXT was still 1 hour? I'm not so sure. So for them, I think from the women's division, they've probably been the most to credit out of that as well. Next question comes from Tire World Order, and I really like this question, so I wanted to get this one in nice and early. Will Impact Wrestling need to start touring more widely again, or is it okay for them to remain the same size and tour the same loop since they have an audience on Access regardless? Put another way, does Impact need growth, or they're okay being a niche product for a devoted fan base? This is a fantastic question. I really like this one. I really like the fact that Impact Wrestling have that niche and are able to do what they want as a product and put that out to their hardcore fan base and keep them satisfied and keep them happy. They're not really doing things that I suppose will go to a mass audience, perhaps because of the fact that their rating is not devoted on or needed for sponsorship. They can do what they want without upsetting anybody. They've not got to worry about devoting to kids. That I think a lot of their product is sort of designed for more teenagers and up. They're kind of going for that sort of teenage to, I don't know, maybe 35 demographic. That's the sort of target audience they're looking for. They've had a lot of great performers come in as well. And they don't take top performers a lot of the time. They seem to take people and grow them up to become something, and they move on to other products. I mean, you looked at, people from Lucha Underground were taken into Impact Wrestling, the likes of Pentagon and Phoenix, and now they've gone on to AEW. They're the LAX team of Santana and Ortiz. They've also moved on to AEW. So people come in and then they move on to the next level. You can take guys as well that within WWE now that have been in Impact before. You could say AJ Styles being one of them, Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode. A lot of people have been involved within Impact Wrestling and have gone on to bigger and better things, and they seem to be, like you say, that niche market. With the regards of travelling, they have actually gone to do some new destinations. They have their solid ones, like you say, that they go to on a consistent basis, but I believe Dallas was one that they've done recently. They started with Nashville earlier in the year, so I think that they will look to continue to try and grow Impact Wrestling as best as they can. But as for a mainstream product, I think that the company is a long way off of ever being something like that again. They never really quite hit the heights of it. They were definitely the number 2 product at one stage. You could argue now that they are probably the 4th or 5th, probably in if you look in the brackets now of mainstreamness of what people would look to for a wrestling product. But looking at them, I think they're good as what they are. And I think the most value in the company these days is probably the tape library. Like we say, we've got so many past performers that have done great matches on old pay-per-views. But you look at it now for their modern thing and what they do right now. They've got their Rampack Plus. They've got a set audience. You do see some familiar faces in the tapings each and every time that they go there. But I think they do a good thing of what they do. They don't oversaturate with pay-per-views either. 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year. It's steady. It's perfect. It works. And I think for that fan base that they have, of course, yes, they'd love it to grow. Everyone wants to be the number 1. But I think for what they're doing, they're not going anywhere. They're not going out of business. They're on a new home now in Access. And I think that that's a more stable home for them. And I hope that continues to work for them in the foreseeable future. So I see Impact Wrestling continue as they're going. And I think they don't need to please anyone. I think they're doing well just as they are. Next question comes from Samuel Dekes, and he says, what is your take on Alistair Black and how he is being booked? Alistair Black is one of my favourites currently within wrestling, just purely because of the fact he's got so much untapped potential. He's a great promo. We've seen him pretty much locked in the room for the last 7 months doing promo work. He's not in the ring enough for me, but his in-ring style is definitely different from the rest. He's got something that makes him stand out. And his look as well. I mean, he's got a very dark sort of character, lots of tattoos. He's from the Netherlands. He's something very different to the pack to what we see from everybody else. So for me, he's someone that definitely has got the potential to be a big star within the company. I think that the problem with Alistair Black at the moment is finding that spot to make him that big star. I think that they're looking, you can't push everybody at the same time, and I think that is probably one of the main issues that we have here for Alistair Black is picking and finding their moments. But of course, we recently had the WWE draft. We've moved him from SmackDown to Raw. And I think the Raw is going to be a better home for him. 3-hour show every week. There's more opportunity for TV time, so that's going to help him a lot. And with Paul Heyman behind the pencil, I know he's a big fan of Alistair Black, so I expect that we're going to start seeing more and more of him each and every week on WWE TV. So fingers crossed that we're going to start seeing that potential actually come to life on our screens. I'm sure quite a few fans will wish he was back in NXT, especially now that that is on the USA Network every single week. But I'm quite happy he's on the main roster because of the fact that there's a lot of talent on NXT these days to get through on a 2-hour show as well. I know we said a lot of people early in the video are getting more exposure. I think that if that product, though, was oversaturated with talent, that people would probably miss out every week. So I think that this is the right home for Alistair Black. I think that we've got some great dream matches potential on Raw for him as well. I mean, a match with Seth Rollins, I think, would be a match I'd really like to see. Randy Orton would be a great feud as well. So there are people there for Alistair Black. So I'm hoping we're going to see a better more publicised Alistair Black as we head in towards WrestleMania season. Next question comes from Rando, who asks, he says, I feel like guys like Drew McIntyre, Alistair Black and more are underutilised in WWE. They lack compelling storylines. Do you think the right person could do more with this roster? Well, as someone who loves the fantasy book, yes, I completely agree with you. I think that we see a lot of safe storylines in WWE these days. Of course, like we mentioned earlier on with Impact Wrestling, they want to, unlike Impact Wrestling, who don't have to please sponsorship deals, WWE have got these big networks like Fox. They've got sponsorship deals as well. They want to appeal for kids audiences. They want to go for every audience possible, but of course they are devoted their product more for a PG product, which means it's designed really for a younger audience as well to be involved with this. So you could answer that WWE right now is playing it safe with a lot of their storylines, and they probably as well don't book as good a storylines as what they could, even with the surroundings of what they can do. Because just because something's PG doesn't mean that they need to have constant swearing. They can still do wrestling. We see all the violence in the ring every single week, so that stuff seems to be acceptable. So I don't see why we can't get some compelling storylines. I mean, if we watch certain things on our television screens, depending on what you're a fan of watching, we tend to get good storylines, which keeps us invested to watch each and every week. So I would like to see a massive improvement. I mean, we mentioned with the likes of people like Alistair Black and Drew McIntyre, they certainly could be doing more than what they're doing. It feels like the ball has definitely been dropped with Drew McIntyre, for example, this year. He was a big star that was built up for a whole year last year. He was just fed to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and it feels that since then they're out of ideas, they've dropped the ball, and they don't quite know what to do with him. So for me personally, I would like to see some more creative minds. I don't know if the problem is simply the fact that the people at the top are perhaps out of touch. I mean, we could say, to bring the Vince McMahon argument into this here, the guy's in his 70s who's making those final decisions, probably not a great thing at this point when you want to go to a younger audience, to a mass audience as well. Triple H, of course, is someone we feel has more of an idea of what people want. When we watch NXT, we seem to have more satisfaction out of watching that than we do the main roster these days. So maybe it needs someone like that to be putting the final yeses and nos in there. I mean, of course, we've got a lot of people as well who have been involved with the business for many years, and maybe it just needs some fresh ideas coming from a different angle from outside of the company. I know we see a lot of Hollywood writers, though, come in, and for me, I'm not sure that is the direction to go, because you look at Hollywood movies these days, being a little bit here of an opinion here, I don't think they're as good as what they used to be. I think that these days we don't get as compelling storylines in some of those either. I don't find myself always gripped to see the newest movie when I have some favourites that I've seen from years past that I think have something that compel and make me want to go and watch them more. I think as well, when you look from Hollywood aspect as well, not all of them are necessarily wrestling fans, and I think that that's another big issue. I think you need to understand wrestling to actually be able to put a good product out for people that are watching it on a weekly basis. Someone who doesn't quite understand what's going on can just put a flavourless story together and it's given the go-ahead, and it seems quite bland for us, where we perhaps sometimes demand more from what we see. We see so much potential, and I actually wonder if fans should have some input in some ways sometimes, but perhaps maybe that's not the right angle to go either, because maybe we stick to our favourites and not to others, where I understand that the product, you have certain people that should be pushed as the face of the company, certain people that perhaps shouldn't be. So at the same breath, I mean, you could argue that who is the right person to bring in? I'm not quite sure. But what I would say is fresh ideas is needed to be done, because they've done the same product now for years and have not really freshened things up within WWE. And I think that's another thing that we kind of feel that it pulls us away from the product a little bit. We see things like NXT, it's fresh, it's new. AEW has been brought in, it's fresh, it's new, it's seen as mainstream. So a lot of eyes go to that and feel excitement, and maybe that's the reason we don't feel that same excitement with WWE anymore. It's not the cool thing anymore. Other things have come in that are new, fresh, and arguably are better. So to bring things back within WWE, if you wanted a quick taste of maybe what I would do, just to, as I said, I enjoy a bit of fantasy booking, I would use WWE's Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. I would ditch the ideas of the draft. I would ditch ideas of superstar shake-ups. Instead of like having these one periods where people can bring new superstars in for 1 or 2 shows, I would have a Monday Night War, from those that know the Attitude Era pretty well, and I would bring that within its own company. I would have people that are seen as that they can switch shows at any given time for when a space is needed. So if someone on Raw, for example, has been, Alistair Black, for example, has been used for so much and we've run out of ideas of what to do with him, maybe he can be drafted to SmackDown, but the way he goes to SmackDown is in a way where his contract can run out, or he's been tapped up and he's been purposely moved to the other show. You can get more show rivalry between Raw, SmackDown and NXT, and instead of having it where it's like Survivor Series, yeah, they can have the one show where they all face each other, but you can always have that way where one is trying to up the other show, stealing talent, make it almost feel like it's, rather than AEW, someone outside of the company is the rival. You take it within your own company, and the excitement there is Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Who puts on the great show? Who can tap up and steal talent? Who goes to maybe invade another show at some point? You have lots of different things you can do and make exciting from that. So for me, that would be the thing that I would do if I was trying to make a more fresh and exciting feel to a product in today's market. And speaking of actually, before I go on to the next question, looking at Survivor Series, one idea that I would have done as well, because I feel it's been quite repetitive since we've had that initial NXT invasion, which was an amazing episode, I would have loved to have seen a mole storyline play out here. Kind of similar to like the Survivor Series in 2001 with the invasion angle. I would love to see someone being teased that maybe, Tommaso Ciampa would be a great example. Someone from NXT who could have been teased as a main roster guy, who they think, well, hang on, this guy was going to be on the main roster back in March. Didn't quite work out because he got injured. He's been tapped up. He's been brought back to an idea of the main roster now. And then he kind of goes like, well, yeah, I get to be on WrestleMania, I get to be like this. But maybe then as well, he could turn on the idea and actually rule over Raw and SmackDown, still be part of Team NXT, because in the day, he still needs Goldie. So that would be something that I would do if it was me on the pencil with that. I don't know if anyone likes that booking idea, but if you do, let me know in the comment section, or how you would add on it, how you would twist on it, and what you would do. I'm always interested in hearing fantasy booking ideas. Next question comes from Noob and Co. We've got a couple here for you. What matches will be the match of the night at Survivor Series, and what improvements do you want to see in the AEW women's division? Some fans want to see WWE female talent in their division. Do you want to see the AEW women's division to stay original, or do you want WWE female talent to be added to that roster? We'll take your Survivor Series question first. I do think that the women's match, the women's triple threat, for me has got potential to steal the show. Becky, Shayna Baszler and Bayley. I think it's been the best well-built storyline of those matches, and I do feel as well, looking at it, that there's something really to gain here from it. I feel that we could get a WrestleMania match here with Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler down the line. I think that Bayley has got something to gain here with her heel turn, and Shayna Baszler hasn't really had this sort of moment where we kind of feel to ourselves that she's been exposed to a big audience like this. So this is a big night for her. So I think that this match has got the most to gain from. I'm unsure with the Survivor Series matches if it's going to be a bit of a cluster with 15 people in the same match at the same time. But I do feel that that match has got the most to gain. I do think as well Roderick Strong is underrated within WWE. So him, AJ Styles and Nakamura, I think as well has got an idea to be a very exciting triple threat match. So those are the matches I'm going to go for. But I'm also very excited to see Daniel Bryan against The Fiend Bray Wyatt, I must admit. Looking into the AEW women's division, I think that their women's division has got to stay original to a degree, but I don't think that it's hitting all the bases, and I do think it is going to need some fresh talent to come in and freshen it up. And I actually don't think WWE is the place to do it. Sorry, Impact fans, but I think that that's the place to steal the women from, because their women's division, for me, I think is one of the strongest. You look at Jordynne Grace, Taya Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard, come on, Tessa Blanchard. When she becomes a free agent at some point, that is going to be the one to get hold of. You've got those three women alone, Sue Young, Rosemary, there's people there that you can take, and they would make a great women's roster. I think that Impact Wrestling is the place to go. Look at Ring of Honor as well. Kelly Klein, a great female athlete there as well. They could make stars, and I think that's the thing AEW wants to do. Rather than just steal WWE stars, I think they want to make stars. I mean, if I was to be a guy who would say, yeah, who makes the best women's division for AEW? Yeah, Sasha Banks. I think Charlotte Flair would do a great job over there as well, and would definitely enhance that division. But for me, I think that looking at the Impact roster, maybe Ring of Honor, those are the places I think that they could definitely do with taking to add to their roster. I don't think they should have an overhaul. They should have a sense of people in there that keeps it original as well. I think Britt Baker, you look at Bea Priestley, you've got, Riho, who's done a great job as champion so far. Got some great talent in there as well, but I just think they're lacking a little bit more, and they need, I think, one or two more with a potential people that have got the star power to really raise that division, and I think that that's what they're currently lacking at the moment in AEW. Tyler Slade with our next question now. Is it a smart move for Cody to never challenge for the title again, or do we need to find a loophole? Should NXT change nights, since they're, even with bigger names, AEW has won the ratings? And thoughts and opinions on MJF turning on Cody so soon, and where it might lead for MJF? Well, for me, I do think there'll be a loophole in future. I thought it was perfectly done. It was genius, because everyone actually thought, well, if Cody goes and wins the belt at Full Gear, it's just going to be another Jeff Jarrett and these other people who have led companies before to make themselves the champion. For me, I think that this is great, because it made us kind of want Cody to become champion. And I think when that loophole comes in the future, and Cody does become champion, it's actually going to become a moment where it's going to be very special within the wrestling industry. They've planted a great seed here, and I think that it's going to really work when we get it later in time. Going on to MJF, I think that it was the right time for him to turn, actually, because right now we've seen that mega great promo on this week. All the fans have turned on him. It's perfect. This guy is going to be a star. He can have a great program as well now with Cody. I think it could be built for months as well. I don't think that it could be a one and done. I think they could really make something for this. And MJF has come out of that Cody and Jericho feud, and he's the star here. He's really come out with something. They want to build new stars in AEW. That's the trick here. And MJF is well on his way. It was the right thing to do. I think it got the perfect heat. It's done so well so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in the future. As for NXT and the ratings so far, yes, they've lost on the ratings. Perhaps they need to do, some more of this where they've done with the Survivor Series. They had the OC come in. It was an exciting thing. I think Raw and SmackDown this past week didn't do NXT justice. NXT lost all their matches quite convincingly, almost to a degree. And I think that that's not a great way to build your NXT product to a mass audience when you've got more ratings going and viewing Raw and SmackDown. I think that they need to build NXT as a real strong, credible threat. I do think Survivor Series will help. AEW this past week as well, come off a pay-per-view. That's going to help their ratings as well. I think WWE just needs to continue to build those superstars in NXT as well. And eventually some people might want to see those stars more. They want to see Jericho, Cody and the Young Bucks. We'll have to wait and see. Time will tell on it. But no, they shouldn't switch nights. They need to keep what they're doing. The Monday Night Wars happened, and you didn't see WWE or WCW changing nights overnight or just within a couple of weeks of losing ratings. This is still fresh. It's still exciting. There's a long way to go, and let's enjoy this war for what it is, because both products are putting on great shows every single week. And of course, if they're on different nights, it does actually, promote the idea that the standard could drop a little bit. So no, I don't want it to change. Next question comes from Daniel Decius. And how do you feel about Braun Strowman? Do you think WWE should give him a push? Well, I have said in previous episodes, yes, he deserves a push. He should have been a champion by now. I'm shocked that he's not. I really want to see him become a champion at some point, someday in WWE. But unfortunately, he's been booked like Big Show 2.0. He lost to Tyson Fury. He's turned face and heel far too many times. We need to keep a stable Braun Strowman. We say stable. I like when he goes on his monster, he's the way he is when he's the monster among men, but we need to keep him solid as a face or a heel, and we need to see that push given, and I don't want to see momentum and the rug pulled from underneath him when we feel like we're getting somewhere with him. As where I think he's going to be going in the meantime, I think he's eventually going to have a program with Shinsuke Nakamura. Did you see him stare at the Intercontinental Championship this week on SmackDown? I sure did. I think that is the future. So maybe you could argue Braun Strowman's getting a push. Or maybe he's getting a D push and he's going to the mid-card. We'll have to wait and see how people look at it. But I think the IC title could be in his future. And maybe, just maybe, Braun needs a singles championship. But I've never been a fan of these big guys going for the mid-card belts. I prefer that for the smaller guys. I've always been educated he should go for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I'd like to think a program with him and Bray Wyatt will be coming down the line. We'll just have to wait and see when. But I think that will happen before WrestleMania, perhaps even Royal Rumble season. Maybe Braun has a feud with Shinsuke, wins by DQ or something, or gets DQ'd. That way that program can finish, and then maybe they just push him on towards, rather than being beaten by Nakamura, he's still seen as this dominant guy, wins like a Battle Royal or something, goes towards against Bray Wyatt. Because Bray Wyatt, going against those people that say he's getting revenge on, Braun Strowman is another one of those characters. So I would like to see it. I'd like to see how it's going to play out. But I do feel, after SmackDown this week, the IC title is probably the future for the immediate time. Next question comes from Christina Aguileras' manager. Well, if that is, then please give us a shout, because you've done a good career with Christina. So I wouldn't mind making a little bit of that money, to be fair. He asks, should Moxley take the AEW Championship from Jericho? Interesting twist, that one, because both are heels at the moment in AEW, but both are very over and creditable in their roles. So I do think fans would be fully behind this match if it was to be booked. I am kind of a guy who's more in favour of face versus heel matches, but I do think that with this dynamic, it could work. And of course, Moxley's been booked as one of the strongest guys there. So yes, definitely, he would be a creditable guy. And should he be the guy? I'm not sure. I prefer it to be a face. But I do think that Moxley at the moment, momentum's on his side, and I could see it being a potential, depending on how they want to book storylines going further down the line. Next question comes from Pro Wrestling Talk, and he asks, when will Luchasaurus get a main event push? Well, we have touched on Luchasaurus on previous videos here. He's definitely over. I don't see how Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor didn't see this. I mean, I was a big fan of him in Lucha Underground and saw there was something there. Surprised WWE actually didn't sign him as well. He's got a very different kind of look and feel about him. But for me, he needs to ditch the Jurassic Express. I'm sorry to say it. Marco Stunt is not a guy that gets you to the main event, and I'm afraid Jungle Boy doesn't do it either. I think we need to turn on those guys to get to the main event level completely. But to get main event on TV, well, some point in the near future, because a lot of momentum is behind him right now. And it seems that Scorpio Sky is going to get a match with Chris Jericho, which will probably be a TV main event. Why can't Luchasaurus get it? I'm pretty sure that could happen. But for a full main event push, I think he needs to turn on the Jungle Express. Maybe he needs to become a heel. Maybe like a Kane-like character in WWE. I think that would be a good way to push him. And yeah, I think he could be a main event guy. But his best days are still far ahead of him. I think he's got another 12 months in him, maybe 18 months before he becomes a full main eventer. But yeah, I think big things are ahead for the Luchasaurus. Last but not least, we're going back to Noob and Co. asking, what are your thoughts on Charlotte and Becky as a tag team on Raw in the women's tag team title match? And do I think it's a good idea or a bad idea? What are your thoughts on Stardom planning to bring back Kairi Sane and Io Shirai? Will WWE re-sign them? And will Io Shirai turn on Shayna at War Games? Well, first and foremost, it's a bit weird with Charlotte and Becky as a tag team. I believe it's meant to go through to the TLC pay-per-view, which I'm a bit surprised about, if I'm brutally honest. But I do think as well that as long as they don't win the belts, I don't see it as a bad idea. But I would have thought it was better that Natalia was in there, or Natalia, I should say, with Charlotte Flair, because they beat the Kabuki Warriors on Raw a couple of weeks previous. Becky and Charlotte just lost in recent times. So for me, I would ditch that. I would go with Charlotte and Natalia instead. Looking at Stardom, well, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to bring them back. There are rumours going around about Kairi Sane and her her contract coming up. If I was WWE, I'd re-sign them. I like the Kabuki Warriors. Io Shirai is doing an amazing job in NXT now with this heel turn. I wouldn't let them go anywhere. As for Io Shirai turning on Shayna at War Games, I see where you're coming from, and I do think it's a nice little twist, but I like Io's heel turn right now. I don't want to see that heel turn go back to a face run. Although I'd like to see her go and become NXT Women's Champion, and I think that's the end goal for her, I do think that maybe if she's going to do that, Shayna should already go to the main roster, or it should happen in a multi-woman, like a triple threat, fatal four-way. That's the way I do it. I don't see it happening at War Games. But that's all the questions for this week anyway. Thank you for checking out Ask SCW. If you've got a question, please leave it in the comments section, or you can follow me on Twitter, SCW Wrestling Channel, or you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, and that is SCW The Wrestling Channel. Leave the hashtag Ask SCW, and you can get your question answered on the next episode. But thank you for watching. I'll see you next time here on YouTube.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.